Today I'm going to be showing you how to create this lovely, realistic, very authentic wood effect for your cake drums. It's very simple and easy to do. I'm going to guide you through everything step by step. This is still a little bit wet at the moment, so once it's dried it won't be as glossy. But a little tip, if you want it to stay glossy once it's dried, you can always add a very small amount of confectioner's glaze. For this tutorial I'm using some very basic equipment, so I've just got an 8-inch square cake drum. I'm using the Renshaw's Teddy Bear Brown fondant, a rolling pin, some spaces to roll my fondant in between, some smoothers and some icing sugar. I am choosing to roll out my fondant one strip at a time because I think it gives you more of a realistic effect, and also if you're covering a very large cake drum it just means the fondant's not going to dry up on you. So all I am doing here is simply rolling out my Teddy Bear Brown fondant in between my 5mm spacers. Now we need to simply brush our cake drum just with a small amount of water. This will give the fondant something to stick to. Gently pick up your rolled piece of fondant and lay it onto your cake drum so that it meets in the corner. You'll notice I'm also doing mine diagonally rather than actually going with the flow of the cake drum. I think this just gives it a little bit more of an effect. I'm just going to smooth this off and cut off the excess fondant and then simply repeat that process next to the one that I have just added. I only want to add a few at a time just to prevent the fondant from drying out. But now taking a cocktail stick and dipping it in some water, you simply just want to add some indentations. So where these two strips of fondant meet, I'm going to make that a little bit more prominent. I'm using my spacer just to help keep everything straight, so you can see me doing that just there. But once I have done this, I then want to add more of a wooden effect. Now this is really easy. I'm placing the cocktail stick in water because as the fondant, the longer the fondant's basically in the air, the drier it starts to get. So even though it's not completely dry, if you've got your cocktail stick and it's nice and wet, it'll be a lot easier for you to place in the indentations onto the actual fondant for your wood effect. Now you want this to be absolutely perfect, so you can see I'm going down over and over and over again. But once I have done this, I'm then going to start doing loads of little twirls, just like I am now. And you simply take your time. The more indentations you've got, the better. You can't go wrong, it's just going to look more authentic. We're going to be adding loads of different colour to this a little bit later on in the tutorial. You want lots of big swirls and lots of oval shapes, but they all need to go into the same direction as you can see here. Don't worry if you go from one piece of fondant onto the other. Again, it just looks more authentic. And basically, just cover every single bit of fondant with these lines. Cover the rest of your board with more strips of fondant, and then I'm going to show you how to colour it to make it that lovely, authentic, wood-like cake drum. Depending on the size of your drum, you can also do what I'm doing here and just get your cocktail stick, keep it extremely straight and just add it so it looks like they are small panels of wood. Again, make sure your cocktail stick is covered in water. For the first part of this colouring process, I'm actually going to be using my airbrushing kit, but don't worry if you don't have one. I'm just using a Rainbow Dust 100% edible brown food colour. If you don't have an airbrushing kit, you can simply use a paintbrush. All I want to do is airbrush where the indentations are to look like the separate pieces of wood. I'm not going to be going anywhere near the little oval shapes or all the little lines that I've spent an awful long time placing on there. Remember, if you do not have an airbrushing kit, just use a brush and simply go down each of these lines. Now I need to add more detail. So again, taking the rainbow dust brown colour flow, I'm going to be mixing that and a chocolate powdered edible tint, so I've got two variations of the same colour. They're going to be mixed with a very small amount of gin. This will just help it all evaporate a lot faster. You don't have to use gin. Most bakers use vodka. I just got out of the cupboard what I had in the cupboard. If you don't want to use alcohol, you can use lemon extract. These paints would dry without any alcohol or without lemon extract being added, but they will just dry an awful lot faster if you do it this way. Using a relatively fine brush, I've actually started painting with the chocolate edible tint that I have mixed with the alcohol, and I'm mainly going over the ovals with this and a few of the lines. Just be creative. It can be a bit nerve-wracking at first, but at the end of the day, you don't want your wood looking the same everywhere. And you'll be surprised at how it all starts to come together when you just add different colours to it. So once I've added this colour, I'm then going to mix it slightly with the one that we airbrushed on, which has also been mixed with alcohol now, just so that it can evaporate an awful lot faster. And then once they've been left to dry, just for a short while, we're going to airbrush the whole of the decorated cake drum, just with a very small amount, but very lightly, so it's not as intense as it were in those gaps. Again, do not worry if you do not have an airbrushing kit, because you can do it all with a brush, but you just need to use a much larger brush and not as much paint. I'm now going to add that final layer with the airbrushing kit. Again, remember, if you don't have one, you can just use a brush, but you've got to admit the wood looks really good as it is, which just proves to you that you don't need an airbrushing kit to create this sort of effect. It just makes it that little bit easier.